My name is James Brooks. I'm 38 years old, and I've spent my career climbing the ranks of the investment world, always in the shadow of people far more ruthless and powerful than me. I come from a family of well-established lawyers and businessmen, but I was never the golden child. My older brother, Kyle, is a corporate titan with the kind of ambition that makes people fear him, while I've always been the more cautious one, the quiet observer who stayed out of the limelight. I've always felt like the outsider, the one who couldn't measure up, the one they'd never trust to lead. I tried to carve my own path, but the world I'm in doesn't leave room for mistakes. And that's what I made when I tried to challenge Nathaniel Connolly, the new CEO of Connolly Enterprises. I thought I could outsmart him, expose his empire of lies, but I was wrong. Now, I'm the one being hunted, and it's not just about money anymore, it's my life at risk. And I think I've already lost. The lobby of the Grandview Hotel was pristine, the polished floors reflecting the glow of the afternoon sun. A sense of authority lingered in the air, like the building itself had absorbed the power of its countless high-profile guests. The air was thick with expensive cologne and a faint hum of conversation. But for me, it all felt suffocating. I'd been waiting for over an hour. My meeting with Nathaniel Connolly should have started 30 minutes ago, and my nerves were slowly fraying at the edges. This wasn't just any meeting. This was the one that could make or break everything I had worked for. If this deal went through, Connolly Enterprises would become a key partner in the next phase of my investment firm. If it didn't, I'd have to find another way to stay afloat, and fast. The door to the private lounge opened, and I saw Connolly step out with a handful of other investors trailing behind him. His sharp suit gleamed in the sunlight, his expression unreadable, as though the world itself didn't matter to him. He was the kind of man who could walk into a room and command attention without uttering a word. And, to be honest, I was starting to feel like the only one who hadn't already pledged allegiance to him. He approached me with his hand outstretched. "James, I presume," Connolly said with a faint smile. I shook his hand, the grip firm and cold. "Yes, thank you for taking the time." My voice felt too soft for the occasion. His eyes locked onto mine, sharp, calculating. He didn't look like someone who cared much about time. We sat, and I began my pitch, detailing everything I'd put together. But Connolly didn't react the way I had imagined. He wasn't listening. His eyes were scanning the room, as though he was already thinking about the next deal. Finally, after what felt like hours of rambling, he looked at me. I don't shake hands with people who don't understand real business. The words cut through me. I froze, unsure how to respond. His eyes didn't leave mine as I extended my hand again, but his remained at his side. "You're not one of us," he added, voice low and firm, "and you never will be." I could feel my face flush. The room seemed to contract, the weight of his words pressing on my chest. This wasn't just a business rejection. This felt personal. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Your world is one of short-term gains and quick fixes. Mine? Mine is about power. Real power. The kind you'll never understand." I wanted to fight back, to tell him how wrong he was, but all I could do was sit there, in a room full of strangers who were probably already recording the conversation on their phones. I was a fool. Minutes later, I found myself alone in the lobby, my heart racing in disbelief. I had just been dismissed, publicly humiliated by the very man I thought I could outsmart. The elevator dinged, and I stepped inside, feeling the sting of Connolly's words still fresh on my skin. As the doors closed, I looked at my phone. A text from my assistant blinked on the screen. "We need to talk. Now." I didn't know it then, but that was the moment my life would change. I had no idea how deep Connolly's world went, or how far he would go to protect his empire. But I was about to find out. I pressed a button for the top floor. The climb was just beginning. The hotel room felt empty. It was supposed to be my sanctuary, a place where I could think, clear my mind, and recalibrate before heading back to Connolly Enterprises for the follow-up meeting. But instead, I was staring at the same text from my assistant on my phone, wondering how much further down the rabbit hole I was willing to fall. We need to talk. Now. I couldn't shake the feeling that Nathaniel Connolly had been playing me from the start. His words kept echoing in my mind, "You're not one of us. And you never will be." I stared out the window, watching the New York City skyline as it stretched endlessly. The coldness in Connolly's voice. That dismissive look when I offered my handshake. I knew that wasn't just business. That was personal. And I was now caught in something far deeper than I could have imagined. A knock at the door snapped me out of my thoughts. I checked the time. It was barely an hour since I left the meeting, but something told me it wasn't my assistant coming to talk shop. I opened the door, only to find a man in a dark suit standing there. No words. No greeting. Just his cold eyes, locking onto mine like a predator surveying his prey. He didn't give me a chance to speak before he stepped forward and pushed the door open wider. "Mr. Brooks, I'm afraid we need to have a word." I froze. Something was wrong, really wrong. This wasn't an assistant or another business person. This was a man with a purpose, and it was one that didn't involve friendly conversation. "Who the hell are you?" I asked, voice tight. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he just flashed a badge, FBI. I didn't move. The weight of the situation was slowly crushing me. I thought the meeting earlier was bad, but this was something entirely different. FBI? I repeated, disbelief creeping into my voice. "What's going on?" The agent didn't seem fazed by my confusion. "I'm Agent Garrett Pierce. We need to talk about your involvement with Nathaniel Connolly." That name again. Every word he said felt like a punch to the gut. Connolly. What does he have to do with this? I managed to ask, trying to keep my voice steady. Agent Pierce took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. "We've been tracking Connolly for a while now. We have reason to believe that Connolly Enterprises is involved in a series of financial crimes, money laundering, fraud, and illegal business dealings. You've been connected to him, Mr. Brooks. We need your help." I felt my heart race. It was all coming together, every strange interaction, every warning about Connolly, every clue. But none of it made sense. Was I really that deep in this mess? "You've been working with Connolly, haven't you?" Pierce asked. His voice dropped lower, as if he knew something I didn't. I swallowed hard. "I've met him. Once. That's it. Once?" Pierce's lips curled into a thin smile. "Then you're either a lot more naive than I thought, or a lot more involved than you realize." I was reeling, trying to process the situation. I didn't know what to trust anymore. Had Connolly been using me from the start? Was I a pawn in his game all along? "Listen, Mr. Brooks, I don't care about your partnership with Connolly. I care about what you know. And we need to know it now." I looked at the man before me, his steely eyes cold and unrelenting. This wasn't about business anymore. It was about survival. "I don't know anything," I said, forcing the words out of my mouth. I had to lie. I couldn't afford to be caught up in this. Not now. Not when I was this close to securing everything I needed. Pierce's expression didn't change. He wasn't convinced. "The sooner you cooperate, the sooner this will all be over. But if you don't, well, let's just say we have ways of making people talk." His voice was almost a whisper now. Shit. I was in over my head, and I had no idea how to get out. He handed me a file, and I reluctantly opened it. Inside were photos, bank statements, and detailed records of several accounts tied directly to Connolly. The more I read, the clearer it became. Connolly had been pulling strings for years. And I had unknowingly helped him. I slammed the file shut. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't know what you think I'm involved in, but You don't get to decide, Mr. Brooks. You're already in. Pierce's words hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't back out now. I was entangled in something far bigger than I could ever have imagined. And if I didn't make a choice soon, I was going to lose everything. Suddenly, I heard a buzzing noise. My phone. I pulled it out and saw an unexpected name flashing on the screen, Chloe Green, Connolly's personal secretary. I answered, my hand shaking. Chloe? I have information for you. You're in danger, she whispered urgently. Connolly knows about you. He's coming for you. I froze. Connolly. What do you mean, he's coming for me? Not just you, Chloe replied. Her voice was panicked. For everyone who's been digging too deep. He's onto you, James. Before I could ask anything more, the line went dead. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the FBI. It was Connolly himself. And Chloe had just given me the most terrifying warning of all. I was running out of time. I slammed the door behind me, my mind racing, pulse thumping in my ears. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know if it was the truth or the lie I had just uncovered that was suffocating me. The weight of it all, with Connolly, the FBI, Chloe, the stakes, crushed down like a vice. Every door felt like it was closing in, every path I tried to take was getting swallowed by darkness. I hadn't expected the FBI to knock on my door. But as Agent Pierce's cold eyes drilled into me, I knew the game had shifted. You're already in, he'd said. That line haunted me. And now, everything felt like a carefully orchestrated trap. I had no choice but to comply. It wasn't just about saving my career anymore. It was survival. But every step I took felt like I was digging my own grave deeper. I needed answers, and fast. But where was I supposed to find them? I looked at my phone again. Chloe's warning kept flashing through my mind, he's onto you. I grabbed my coat, yanked the door open, and walked out of my hotel room. My heart pounded as I pressed the elevator button, the ding echoing through the quiet hallway like a warning shot. I knew I wasn't alone. Someone was watching me. I could feel their eyes on me even if I couldn't see them. When the elevator doors slid open, a chill swept through me. Standing at the other side of the lobby was Chloe, her posture stiff, her face pale. She was waiting for me. I didn't hesitate. I walked toward her, my footsteps quick, purposeful. As I approached, she glanced around, making sure no one else was in earshot. Her voice was a whisper when she spoke. James, you need to listen to me. She looked over her shoulder, the fear evident in her eyes. Connolly's men, they're everywhere. They know everything. They're already one step ahead. What's going on? I demanded, the urgency in my voice cutting through the tense air. She grabbed my arm, pulling me to the side. I didn't want you involved, but now it's too late. He's been using you. And you've been playing right into his hands. You don't even realize how deep this goes. Everything started clicking into place. I thought Connolly's game was just business, buying and selling companies, cornering markets. But no. It was far worse. His empire was built on manipulation, deception, and now it looked like I was his latest pawn. You've been feeding him information, James. Everything you've told him? It's all part of his plan. He's been pulling strings for years, and she stopped herself, glancing around nervously. You've been giving him everything he needs to tighten his grip on the city. I felt my stomach drop. I haven't. Yes, you have. Her eyes were wide, desperate. You don't understand what he's capable of. He'll destroy anyone who gets in his way. Even if it means throwing people like you under the bus. I was numb. What had I done? Was this all part of some grand scheme, a setup I didn't even know I was part of? I stepped back, my mind spinning. So, what now? How do I stop him? Chloe's eyes narrowed. You can't. Not unless you go all in. You're already tied to him. There's no way out. She paused. But there's one thing I can do for you, James. What's that? Her hand shook as she pulled out a small flash drive from her purse. This has everything. All the evidence. The accounts, the money laundering, everything. If you want to take him down, you need this. I stared at the drive, the weight of the decision pressing on my chest. Could I really do this? Could I bring down Connolly and survive? The elevator doors suddenly opened behind me, and my head snapped around. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I wasn't alone anymore. Someone was coming for us. The room felt suddenly too small. Too exposed. Chloe's eyes flicked to the elevator. Go. Now, she whispered, shoving the drive into my hand. Get out of here. You don't have much time. Before I could react, she turned and disappeared into the crowd. The lobby seemed to stretch forever. I felt eyes on me again. The weight of the flash drive in my hand felt like a bomb ready to go off. I had no choice. I needed to run. As I rounded the corner to the exit, I spotted the man in the black suit. He was standing by the entrance, his face partially obscured by sunglasses, but I knew exactly who he was. Connolly's guy. The enforcer. I had no doubt he had been watching me from the moment I stepped into the hotel. My pulse quickened, and I spun on my heel, heading in the opposite direction. I couldn't risk getting caught, not now. Not with the evidence in my hand. I could hear footsteps behind me, but I didn't dare look back. I could feel the man closing in. The hotel's glass doors loomed ahead, and I pushed my way through them just as I heard the man shout, "Hey!" I didn't stop. I ran out into the street, the chill of the evening air hitting my face like a slap. A black SUV skidded to a stop right in front of me. The door opened, and the driver leaned out. "Get in," he barked. There was no time to think. I jumped into the back seat, the door slamming shut behind me. As we sped off, I risked a glance out the back window. The man in the black suit was standing there, staring after us. But something felt wrong. Why was the driver helping me? Was this another part of Connolly's trap? I glanced at the rearview mirror. The man's eyes weren't watching the road. They were watching me. I didn't know who I could trust anymore. And I was about to find out just how deep Connolly's reach really went. I didn't have time to process what had just happened. The moment I stepped into the black SUV, the weight of the situation hit me like a freight train. The man driving, whose face was as cold as his dark sunglasses, never said a word. I wasn't sure if I was being rescued or if I had just walked into another trap. The car sped through the streets, the city blurring around me. I tried to steady my breath, but the tension in the air was suffocating. I was in over my head, and the reality of that was starting to settle deep in my chest. There was no one I could trust. No one. I thought about Chloe's warning, Connolly's men, they're everywhere. They know everything. My hand gripped the flash drive in my pocket. It was my only leverage, my only chance to bring Connolly down. But I knew it wasn't going to be that easy. In this game, nothing was. The car took a sharp turn, and I glanced at the driver. "Where are we going?" He didn't answer immediately, keeping his eyes on the road. Then, in a low voice, he muttered, "You'll find out soon enough." The door of the SUV clicked open, and I stepped out onto a street I didn't recognize. The area was dark, deserted, a far cry from the city's usual hustle. The only light came from a dim street lamp flickering overhead, casting long shadows on the cracked sidewalk. I felt the weight of eyes on me. My skin prickled. The feeling of being watched. It was as if someone, or something, was lurking just beyond my vision. I followed the driver into a nondescript building, its windows blacked out. The inside was surprisingly cold, the air heavy with the smell of industrial cleaning supplies. No one spoke as I was led down a long corridor. Each step felt like I was walking deeper into a labyrinth, further away from any chance of escape. We stopped in front of a steel door. The driver knocked twice, and a voice from inside called out, "Come in." The door swung open, and the man who stood inside wasn't anyone I recognized. Tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in black, he exuded an air of silent menace. His eyes were dark, empty, like he knew too much and cared about nothing. This was no ordinary henchman. "You've been asking the wrong questions, Mr. Brooks," he said, his voice a low growl. "And now, you've crossed the line." I didn't flinch. Instead, I met his gaze, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm here because I want to know the truth. About Connolly." He smirked, stepping aside to let me enter. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." The room was dimly lit, cluttered with papers and electronic equipment. A large screen on one wall flickered to life as the man hit a button. A grainy video appeared, a surveillance tape from Connolly Enterprises, showing an off-the-books meeting between Nathaniel Connolly and a group of unknown individuals. They were discussing something, but the footage was hard to make out. The man watched me carefully, gauging my reaction. I didn't look away. This was my chance to get answers, and I wasn't going to waste it. "What is this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Connolly's little operation," he replied. "But there's more. Much more." He clicked a few buttons, and another video appeared. This time, it showed Connolly in a private office, talking to a familiar face, Chloe. My stomach dropped. Chloe? What the hell was she doing in the middle of this? The conversation was muffled, but I could read their lips. Connolly was saying something about making sure the deal goes through, and Chloe nodded in agreement. I couldn't believe it. She had been working with him the whole time. I turned to the man, my heart pounding. What the hell is going on? Why was she helping him? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You've got it all wrong. Chloe wasn't helping him. She was running the show. I took a step back, trying to process his words. What do you mean? The man looked me dead in the eyes. Connolly? He's a player. But Chloe? She's the one who built this empire. She's the one who set it all up, every last detail. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was personal. Chloe had been using me from the start. She'd been pulling the strings, feeding me false information, leading me straight into Connolly's trap. The man smirked at my shock. You didn't think she was just a secretary, did you? No. Chloe was always Connolly's partner, but now she's more than that. She's got bigger plans. And you? You were just a pawn to make sure everything went smoothly. A pawn. I felt like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. I had trusted her, and she had used me. Used me to destroy everything I had left. The man handed me a folder filled with documents, contracts, encrypted bank transfers, lists of people connected to Connolly's operation. The scale of it was staggering. It wasn't just financial fraud. It was human trafficking, arms deals, political manipulation. This was bigger than I'd ever imagined. There's one thing you need to understand, Mr. Brooks, the man said, his voice cold. This isn't just about taking down Connolly anymore. It's about taking down the entire system. And if you're not careful, you'll be caught in the crossfire. I glanced at the folder in my hands. This wasn't a fight for survival anymore. This was a war. But what choice did I have? I clenched my fists, the weight of the decision heavy in my chest. I had to play this game, the only way out was to go deeper. But what if I didn't make it out alive? The door behind me opened, and another figure stepped in, a familiar face. Chloe. The twist of betrayal hit me again, hard. She walked toward me, her face unreadable. You didn't think you could outrun this, did you, James? She said softly, the words slicing through the air like a knife. I was about to find out just how far she was willing to go. The car swerved to a stop in front of a nondescript building, one that looked just like every other warehouse lining the street. No signs, no lights, just a cold, industrial structure that felt like a tomb. I glanced out the window, my mind racing, but the man sitting across from me didn't budge. His face remained stoic, unreadable. "Get out," he said, his voice like gravel. I didn't hesitate, despite the knot tightening in my stomach. The last time I stepped into a place like this, I didn't walk out the same way. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. My hands were clammy, my heart pounding. The flash drive was still in my pocket, a small glimmer of hope in a sea of impending disaster. The driver opened the door and stepped out. He didn't look back, just walked toward the building. I followed, keeping a step behind him, feeling the weight of the eyes that seemed to be watching from every shadow. The door creaked open, and the stale air hit me like a slap in the face. There was no warmth here. No sign of humanity, just cold concrete and dim fluorescent lights. Inside, the walls were lined with metal shelves, heavy equipment scattered across the floor. A few figures lingered, their faces obscured in the gloom. They didn't look at me, but I could feel the hostility radiating from them. The last thing I needed was to draw attention to myself, so I kept my head down, my eyes scanning the room. Then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing down the hallway behind me. I turned just as Chloe stepped into the room. Her face was unreadable, a mask of calm that barely concealed the tension in her eyes. She was different now, colder, more calculating. And as she looked at me, I realized that I'd never really known her. Not at all. "You shouldn't have come, James," she said softly, her voice laced with something I couldn't place, regret, maybe, or something darker. I didn't answer immediately. My pulse was hammering in my chest, my thoughts racing. Chloe had been playing me the whole time. She wasn't just a secretary, she was the one pulling the strings. The real power behind everything. She had known exactly what she was doing when she fed me all that information. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could say a word, the man from the SUV appeared, standing beside her now, blocking my exit. "James, you're way in over your head," he said. "Chloe's right. You shouldn't have come." My eyes darted between the two of them. "What do you want from me?" Chloe stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "You've been asking the wrong questions. Connolly isn't the mastermind. You should have been looking at me. All the pieces you've been trying to put together. They were all in front of you." The words didn't sink in right away. I just stood there, frozen. I finally managed to croak. "You're the one pulling the strings?" She didn't respond at first, her gaze sharp. Then she nodded, almost imperceptibly, as if I should have figured it out myself. "I never wanted you involved, James," she said, her voice low, but there was something almost pitying in her tone. "But you kept pushing. And now, look at where you are." The room seemed to close in around me. The walls felt like they were pressing against me, the air thicker with each passing second. Betrayal was one thing, but this was worse. I tried to steady my breath, but it came out ragged. Why? Why drag me into this? Chloe's eyes hardened, and she turned her back on me for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts. Because I needed someone. Someone who could be the perfect pawn. And you were perfect. You were too ambitious, too eager. You thought you could make a name for yourself by exposing Connolly. I could feel the weight of her words as they sank in. I had been nothing more than a tool, a means to an end. Don't you get it? Chloe said, spinning back around. Connolly's nothing. He's a figurehead. I'm the one who controls everything. And now you've made it so I can't let you walk away. Walk away from what? I demanded, my voice barely above a whisper. From the game, she said, almost amused. You've already taken the first step. There's no turning back. I looked around the room, desperate for some escape, some way out of this mess. My mind was in overdrive, racing through all the possibilities, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this really it? The sound of a phone ringing broke the silence. Chloe's expression hardened as she reached into her pocket and answered the call, her voice low. I couldn't make out the words, but I could see the tension in her posture, the way her shoulders stiffened as the conversation continued. Then, she hung up, turning back to face me. There was something different in her eyes now, something cold, calculating. "You've been marked, James," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They know everything about you. Every move you've made. You're already in their sights." I felt my stomach drop. "Who?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at me for a long moment, as if weighing something inside her. Then, finally, she spoke. "The people who really run this world. The ones you've been trying to expose. They've been watching you. And now they're coming for you." The breath caught in my throat. I wasn't just being watched by Connolly's people. There were bigger players involved. And I had no idea how far their reach extended. Before I could react, the door behind me slammed open. Another figure stepped inside. This time, it was Agent Pierce. His eyes flicked from Chloe to me, and he didn't even acknowledge her presence as he walked toward me. "Time's up, Mr. Brooks," he said, his tone cold and final. "We have to move. Now." The room seemed to tilt. I was running out of time. And now, I was caught between Chloe, Pierce, and the men I'd been running from all along. There was only one question left. Who could I trust? I was standing in the heart of the storm, the weight of everything closing in. The walls felt like they were pressing against me, suffocating, and the air was thick with unspoken tension. Chloe was no longer just a face in the crowd, she was the storm itself, and I had been foolish enough to step right into its center. The truth had become a weapon, one that had been wielded against me all along. I didn't know who I was fighting anymore. Was it Connolly? Was it Chloe? Or was it something much bigger? The system? The power? The game that I had become a pawn in? I clenched my jaw, feeling the heat of betrayal seeping into my veins. I had trusted her. I had trusted them. Now, standing in this cold, dimly lit room, with nothing but the flashing neon lights reflecting off metal, I understood. I was just another casualty in a world that fed on ambition, on secrecy, on deception. "I'm sorry it had to be this way, James," Chloe said, her voice quiet but sharp. She didn't look apologetic, though. There was no remorse in her eyes. There never had been. Just a cold, calculated stare that made me wonder if I had ever really known her at all. The air shifted, the door creaking open as Agent Pierce stepped into the room. His presence was like a looming shadow, a reminder that there was always someone watching, waiting. He didn't speak at first, just looked at me, and then his gaze shifted to Chloe. I didn't know what to say. There was nothing left to say. "You have a choice, Mr. Brooks," Pierce said, his voice as cold and calculated as ever. "You can walk out of here with the evidence, take down Connolly, and expose Chloe for what she really is. Or you can let her walk away and walk out with nothing. But know this, if you do, you're part of the system. You're part of the machine that keeps it all turning." I wanted to lash out, to scream that this wasn't how it was supposed to be. But I knew better. I had seen enough to understand that the world didn't care about right or wrong. It only cared about who controlled the narrative. Who controlled the power. Chloe stepped closer, her fingers lightly grazing the flash drive in my pocket. "You don't have to do this, James," she said softly, as though she were trying to comfort me. "You could walk away. Leave all of this behind. Start fresh. No more fighting. No more exposure. Just freedom." The words sounded hollow. I knew she didn't mean them. This was a game to her. And I was just a player she needed to use to get ahead. "I'm not walking away," I said, my voice barely a whisper. But it wasn't fear or hesitation that laced my words. It was resolve. It was the knowledge that the truth, no matter how ugly, had to come out. Suddenly, the walls didn't feel as oppressive. The air didn't feel so heavy. I wasn't just going to be another casualty. I wasn't going to be a pawn anymore. It wasn't about Connolly. It wasn't even about Chloe. It was about me. About standing up for what was right, no matter the cost. I turned to Pierce. Take her. Take everything she's done. But I'm not walking away from this. Chloe's eyes flashed with something, anger. Maybe. But I saw something else, too. Fear. She didn't expect this. She thought I would cave. She thought I would choose the easy way out. But I wasn't her puppet anymore. Pierce stepped forward, his hand outstretched. This is your last chance, Mr. Brooks. Make the right decision. I hesitated, my mind racing with the weight of the choice. What was the right decision? Could I live with the consequences of exposing Chloe, exposing the people who'd been pulling the strings all along? The betrayal was deep, but the truth was deeper. And if I didn't expose it, I would become part of the very system I was trying to fight. I placed the flash drive into Pierce's hand. Chloe's eyes went cold. You'll regret this, she hissed. No, I said, my voice steady. You're the one who will regret it. Pierce nodded, his face unreadable. The tension in the room was palpable as he turned toward the door, motioning for his team to follow. Chloe stood frozen, her expression a mixture of disbelief and fury. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel relief. I felt something else, like a weight had been lifted. The kind of weight that only comes from standing up for what you believe in, even when it costs everything. The door closed behind Pierce and his team, leaving me alone in the cold, empty room. Alone with the truth. And in that moment, I realized that the hardest thing in life wasn't standing up against the system. It was standing up to the lies you had believed your whole life. To the people you had trusted. To the choices you made without realizing their true cost. As I walked out into the cold night, I knew that things would never be the same again. But maybe that was the point. It wasn't about redemption. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about truth. And truth, no matter how painful, was the only thing worth fighting for. The truth will set you free. But first, it will make you miserable. The words echoed in my mind as I walked into the unknown. I didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in a long while, I was ready to face it head on.